Welcome to episode 6 of the Willpower podcast. My guest today is Erin Laverone. Erin is the co-founder and CEO of the Habit Coach Professionals, an expert nutrition, health, and fitness coach, and an Austin-based super connector. This was a super insightful conversation into how we build willpower, what willpower really is, and a few easy strategies you can take away and begin using in your life. What do people get wrong about willpower?
Jumping right into it. Willpower. So I think a lot of times when people are thinking about willpower, they think they have to tough it out, grit their way. It's got to be hard. They have to resist. And I think when you take that approach, you're probably trying to do something that really you haven't thought about how it actually aligns with your life and the values you have. And if you actually look at research on willpower, what they find is that those who have the highest willpower actually utilize it the least. And so what does that tell us? Well, I think the way you do that, and you don't have to tap into willpower, is one, you have a really clear vision of what is my identity and what are my values. And so that you set up your environments such that the things you want to do, the person you want to be, that's the easy thing. Not the thing we have to beat our heads against a brick wall to try to get ourselves to do. In your daily context, your home space, your workspace, whatever your third space is, you're creating those spaces to make the life you want to live easy. That way, when it comes up and you end up in a context where you don't have much control over it, I don't know, it's going to a family's house for a holiday, or maybe you don't have much control over what your office environment looks like. If at that point you need to utilize your willpower, you can, because you're not utilizing it all the time. Willpower is more about energy, and we want to try not to necessarily tap into that. It's going to ebb and flow. But if we can utilize it less and just make those things that we want to do, those things that we value, those things that make us who we are, that are a part of our identity, just natural, then we don't really need to utilize willpower most of the time.
Okay. So how do you walk people through that? Creating that identity, that vision of who you want to be. How do you go through that process?
Yeah, so for me, I coach people. Started out in nutrition, health, and fitness. I have a business partner, and we coach coaches who are kind of in the same space that I was once in, as well as life coaches, career coaches. But regardless, when you have a client, or if you're helping just a friend or family member, and they're saying, I want to make X change, or I want to start doing this thing, I'm going to ask why. And I'm going to sit there and listen. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to ask why again. And I'm going to sit there and listen. I'm going to ask why again, probably 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, until you actually get from, I want to be able to work out more so that I look good this summer, to, well, really, I'm wanting to look out more because I want to feel more energetic in life. I want to be there for my kids when they're older. I want to be a productively contributing member of society in some way. So those deep down, who is it that I am and I want to be, is where we really want to get to.
Yeah. Who you want to be, how you want to feel. I think
Right.
That's when I do that why thing, it ends up being I want to feel secure, or I want to feel energized.
Right. And depending on, what your beliefs might be around spirituality or religion, if we kind of set that aside, we are what we repeatedly do. That's what our identity is, those actions that we consistently take. So if what we do is not in line with what we say and what we think, there's going to be this cognitive dissonance that arises, and that might actually be a situation in which we're then having to like willpower our way through things. And obviously what we say has a big impact on like who we are as well. So if we approach things from I don't know, maybe we're trying to be a little bit healthier. And if we approach things and we say, I am a healthy person, rather than I'm trying to be a healthy person, or I am a person who does not eat the donuts, rather than a person who can't eat the donuts, those things can impact our identity and whether or not we need to utilize willpower, or if it's just that's who we are, rather than that's a thing we're trying to do.
So I'm hearing a lot of parallels to things I read in Atomic Habits. Do you have any other, first of all, is that a book that has influenced you? And then do you have any other book recommendations?
In like the willpower habit space?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I think Atomic Habits is amazing. James Clear isn't a researcher himself, but he's someone who's taken a lot of time to go through the research and then been able to disseminate it to the general public in a way that is easily digestible and actionable. The book honestly changed my life. It changed my career. Because I had already been studying all of the stuff that he kind of talks about and more. As I was a nutrition, health, and fitness coach before I started my second business with my partner. And once I saw, like I had been seeing as I was studying on my own, I'm like, this stuff has a huge impact in the coaching space, and no one is actually directly teaching coaches this stuff in a way that they can actually use it efficiently and effectively, and actually be able to assess behavior to know when you utilize these strategies that science has proven has worked. So when I saw Atomic Habits at the shelves, of course I read it, and it's phenomenal, and I've gifted it to many people. But what I saw like as a coach is that if it's just you grabbing it and trying to help yourself, and you grab a strategy, you grab habit stacking out of that book, and you're like, I'm going to create a habit stack to help me do whatever behavior I want to do. And you go and you try. If it works, phenomenal. I'm stoked for you. If it doesn't work, you basically just grabbed a strategy, threw it at the wall like you throw spaghetti and hope it sticks. But then you're like, okay, it didn't work. And you, one, haven't solved the problem you were trying to solve, but two, you never understood the problem in the first place because you just grabbed something and hoped it sticked. So what we've done like with our program is that we've taken all those, like Atomic Habits, great starting point, gives you all these strategies, but we've actually built out a systematic assessment and programs such that you can understand behavior. How do we make decisions? What makes behavior happen? How do behaviors turn into habits? What aspects of our contexts that I was talking about earlier, whether it's built, social, mental, digital, impact decisions we make, things we do, habits we form. And once you can assess that and understand where the true problem lies, then you can take those strategies in Atomic Habits and throw it at the wall. Honestly, for the general population, I do think that is probably the best book out there. Researchers that have their own books, they're phenomenal. They're not necessarily always the best at like conveying the research to the general public, but there are some pretty good ones out there. But the thing is, when you go for a researcher's book, is you're going to get their view based on their research alone. The thing I really like about Atomic Habits, other than the fact that he's just really great at communicating it to the lay population, is that he pulls research from a bunch of different researchers. Gives you a bunch of different strategies to try, because what one researcher might quote unquote prove on college age males may work for you, but it may not. And so with something like Atomic Habits, you're getting a bunch of different viewpoints. You take a step up, you come to someone like us, we're actually telling you how to assess it so you can figure out which different science-proven strategies are right in this given moment, with this given person, with this given context. So, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't recommend anything better than that in the direct like habit space. I think it's a fantastic book, and if you have not read it yet for some reason, you definitely should.
Okay, so there's a level above the step-by-step, which is like understanding the actual behaviors. Because like I've read so many self-help books, and each one I'm like, it would probably work. It would probably help me. But there's so many of them where I just don't actually follow through with it. So how do you either help your clients or help your clients with their clients in terms of actually sticking through with a plan?
Well, I would do a behavioral assessment on them.
Okay.
That's what we teach in our program, is actually trying to, but first, like, not just creating a plan. Like, of course, like I said, you would have started with getting down to, like, why do you really want to do this thing? But then we need to understand, what is the problem? If this is a thing we want to do, why aren't we doing it already? If this is a thing I don't want to do, why the heck are we doing it? And there are a variety of things that play into this. Everything from, like, is the behavior enjoyable, fun, rewarding in the moment that we're doing it? Not down the line, not giving us rewards and, you know, a tasty meal or a cash payout or a trophy or whatever it might be, a t-shirt. Not down the line, but, like, in the moment, is the thing we're trying to do rewarding in some way? If it's not, we're not going to do it long term. We're not going to keep repeating it. Maybe when our motivation's really high, we just had something a little bit traumatic happen or a big change in life, and yeah, those first 3 weeks we'll do it, and then life's going to kick us in the pants again, and it's not going to be a priority, and we're not going to do it. So it's got to be, is it enjoyable to do? Do we have the right social support systems in place at home, at work, you know, whatever those, you know, 5 major people in your life are that you spend the most time with? Are they, you know, going to help you do those things? Not maybe directly, but does the situations in which you end up with them support that? Do you have the ability to do the behavior? That sounds like a stupid question, kind of. It's like, I don't know. Yeah, I can work out. I'm pretty healthy. I'm agile. But there's a lot that actually goes into the ability. There's the actual ability. Do you have the skills to do it? Do you have the knowledge to do it? Do you have the resources, time, money, equipment? But do you also have the perceived ability? Do you believe in yourself, have the confidence and self-efficacy that, yes, I can do this? Like, what is the complexity of this behavior? Both, like, skill-wise, but also, like, time commitment-wise, resource-wise. You know, what are potential consequences if I decide to do this behavior? Like, yeah, we think that there are positive consequences. There could be negative. I may have to, like, start saying no to, like, friends, or I may have to, like, shuffle money into this, whatever it is I'm trying to do, and so that takes money away from here. So there's just a variety of things that, like, I at first not only don't understand why I want to do this, but I need to understand why I'm either not or am doing it, depending on if this is a behavior that I want to do or don't want to do anymore.
Do you ever walk people through the, or yourself, the potential resistance that will come up?
Yeah.
Because that's something for me that I've ignored in the past. When there's
Yeah.
some new thing, I'm like, I'm going to keep doing this for, like,
Yeah.
this is amazing. I'll never stop. I don't think about, like, oh, but there is a time where I'm not going to want to do this. And I think just walking myself through that in the beginning, being like, okay, I'm super excited about this, but I can see why maybe in 3 weeks I might not be as excited. What's going to get me through that?
Yeah. So there's 2 things we actually do. Am I allowed to cuss on here or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
Because I'll give you the PG version if not. So the first thing I'll say is, like, after we've done, like, an initial consult or whatnot, whatever your initial kind of call or session is with a client, you know, I'm sending up that follow info. Their motivation's really high. They just put a lot of money down. You know, they're stoked. They really want to make this change. I actually send them an email that, like, sets expectation for this. And it's, you know, it starts off positive. It's like, hey, I'm super stoked you're investing in yourself. This is going to be an awesome ride. I'm really excited to help you get to where you want to be. And this is going to be a giant roller coaster. There's going to be some really high highs, but there's also going to be some really low lows. And there's going to be points where, like, you probably want to throw the towel in. You're going to skip once and you're going to want to skip twice, and that's probably going to spiral down. You're probably going to ghost me because there's going to be some insane cognitive dissonance knowing that you paid me a lot of money. This is something you want to do and you're still not doing it. And you're going to throw in the towel and be like, fuck it. But I'm still here and I want to help you get to where you want to be. So I'm going to keep checking in. Even if you ghost me and you stop, you know, checking in on texting or calls or emails, however we're going about that in that specific client relationship. Like, I'm going to be there at least once a week. If you need me, let me know. If you don't need me, also let me know. I can back off. But basically, I communicate, like, from that first email, like, hey, it's going to happen. You're going to want to say fuck it. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be hard. So now that expectation is set. Like, this isn't going to be easy. I want it to be as easy as possible, but it's not going to be all easy. The next thing we do is that we set like an implementation intention. That's basically getting as specific as possible. Like, when is this behavior that I'm trying to do going to occur? So I'm going to do X behavior at X time and X place after X other behavior right before that. So trying to get as specific as possible. So you're painting this picture of like, what is this actually going to look like? You're more likely to follow through if you can create that, write it out, say it out, post it somewhere, have someone holding you accountable to that, whether it's just me, the coach, but also maybe family members or friends. But then I'm also creating an if-then plan. So what this does is this sets me up for all the potential things that might cause resistance or friction in following through on that behavior. So if, I sleep through my alarm and hit snooze so many times, then I'm going to do this behavior at this time in this place after this other behavior. So, and you're thinking through multiple scenarios, like what are like the 10 most common things that are going to throw me off from doing this, so that I have that backup plan already in place. Mm-hmm. So those are the two main ways to kind of tackle that. And then, there's the in the moment stuff. So this is more of a skill rather than a strategy. There's something called surfing the urge. So like in that moment when emotions are high, stress is high, whatever it might be, those internal triggers and sensations that are maybe keeping you from doing the things you want to do. Rather than, and this takes a lot of practice, you're not going to get it right the first time, but rather than giving in and saying, fuck it, throwing in the towel, sitting there, just sitting with them and getting curious. Like, oh, I'm really stressed right now. Or I'm really lonely right now. I'm really tired right now. This doesn't feel great. And maybe even giving yourself permission to do whatever behavior it is to do. I really want to just go mindlessly scroll on social media. I really just want to go dive into that ice cream tub in the bottom of the freezer and be like, okay, like, I'm going to sit here for 2, 3, 5, 10 minutes and just sit with this and be curious and see how maybe it flows. And if I do that, I'll give myself permission, if I want, to go do the other behavior that I want to do. And so the idea is that over time, like maybe the first couple of times you still give in and do that coping behavior, but that you start to get better at prolonging that time and maybe even not giving into the coping behavior and actually starting to become aware that those emotions, those internal triggers will actually ebb and flow. They're not just going to escalate until you're not going to explode, right? They're going to peak and then you'll notice, okay, it subsides if I do not give into the coping behavior. Not crossing the addiction line here, but just kind of general, maybe bad habits or coping mechanisms. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what it is like it's an emotion. Mm-hmm. It's an emotional response, and you are doing the. So for me, it would be something like eating something that I don't want to really eat, and by eating it, that makes that go away, mm-hmm. rather than like what you're saying, which is like just ride it out, just feel it fully and see what happens.
And another kind of like fourth point that kind of tackles onto maybe that if-then planning or just kind of pre-planning ahead of time is that if I've gone through those scenarios where I know that, hey, this is the coping mechanism I might resort to, this is what might come up that might keep me from doing the thing I want to do, is ahead of time setting up those environments such that that coping mechanism, that hard behavior, that bad habit is not easily accessible, so that I don't have to willpower my way through mm-hmm. it, right? So if you know that like when you're stressed or tired that you're going to give into something sweet or salty, don't keep it in the house. For me, I have I used to be an emotional eater. I pretty much don't keep that stuff in my house. Mm-hmm. I don't have a problem with eating it. Like I'll definitely enjoy ice cream now and then. I'll definitely enjoy some chips and guac, but I try really hard not to keep it in my house. Like at the happy hour I had the other night, someone made chips and guac and they're like, hey, you want to keep the chip bag? And I was like, nope, please take it. I know myself too well. Do not want those sitting on the house. It's a stressful, busy week here, and the last thing I want is to be tired at 4 p.m. and that salty bag of chips calling my name.
It's right there. Yes. I wanted to say that it sounds like basically what you're doing is avoiding that fuck it moment.
Yeah.
Where like, okay, I did the bad thing. I ate the ice cream. Fuck it. I'll do whatever. I'll eat this other bad thing, or I'll go on social media. And being more of just like, okay, that happens. I planned on this. I knew this might happen. Mm-hmm. Now I know the next step.
Right. I will comment too on that, in that like I'm a human. My clients are humans. We're still going to get to a point where we say, fuck it. We got a long life to live. It's going to happen. And so there are two things that I kind of like then also have to help me through that is like kind of a rule. I'm sure you heard this. It's never miss twice. So bad day doesn't mean you have to completely throw the towel in and tomorrow has to be a bad day. Doesn't even mean like bad meal. Doesn't even mean the next one. The rest of today doesn't have to. One done, great. Move on. And what can we learn? Like there was something that happened there. Can I become a little bit more aware of like, all right, I gave in, either aware of it or not. Now I've realized I've done it. I probably feel even worse, to be honest, right? It usually only helps momentarily. And then you're like, crap, that wasn't really in line with who I am and what I want to be. So what can I learn from that? Or maybe it is just that like, hey, maybe this is in line with who I am. Every once in a while, I do need to just chill out and this is okay. And just knowing that like one-offs, I'm okay with that. Two-offs, not so much.
So I've found the cycle I get into. So I'm curious if you have a plan of action for this. I will do the bad behavior that I don't want to do. And then I will berate myself for it. And I'll be like, why would you do that? And I feel bad about myself. That then leads, the next time I break, I go into that fuck it mentality because I'm like, I'm already going to be mean to myself. Why not like get the most out of this? Does that make sense? So I do more and more bad things because it's like, oh, dad's not watching almost. It's like, I did the bad thing. Let me make the most out of it.
Sure. Like you're talking about like almost like a binge?
Yes, exactly. Okay. It's like a binge mentality I get into. Exactly. Yeah.
And you're saying, how do you get yourself out of that?
Yeah. So for me, it's been a practice of not doing the berating, not being mean to myself, even if I do the bad thing.
Yeah. I think overall it's just, it's skill and practice and awareness, right? So, first it's like good for you for becoming aware that that's your tendencies. Number one, I mean, awareness is the first key. Number two, becoming aware that can I become not aware after, but during, and can I break whatever it is I'm doing from either like, maybe it's from ever happen, like initially starting, or maybe it's like, oh, you realize it halfway through and I cut it off here.
Cut it.
But I think honestly, the biggest thing is like setting for yourself up for success ahead of time. So it's like in that type of situation, right? It's an internal thing that's happening that's bad. So those are a little bit harder to control than like the external things you can set up for success. But the biggest thing is like getting really good at that urge surfing thing. Even if it's not like in a craving or something you're giving into, but it's the berating. It's like, oh, I am doing this. And then maybe having a behavior. So what happens is, I keep putting bad behavior, bad habit in quotes. And that's because we don't actually, at least in our company, based on the research, nothing is a bad habit. Nothing is a bad behavior. Because every single behavior is solving a problem. Therefore, it is good. It's doing a really good job at solving that problem. That's why you keep doing it. And you keep defaulting to it. And you don't even think about it. But the thing is oftentimes our longer term goals are not in line with our immediate behaviors, or vice versa is probably a better way to say that. Our immediate behaviors are not in line with our long-term goals. And that's because our brains are wired to survive right this moment. Millennia of evolution. I need to survive now. It's almost a privilege, right? That I can, in this day and age, think about who and what and where do I want to be 3-6 months from now, even tomorrow for that sake. So the fact that I can like sit there and then become aware of like, okay, this is not actually serving me in the long term. Can I have something else ready to go so that I can start to replace that bad behavior that's not serving the long term? It's serving the immediate term for some way really well. But can I have something that I'm ready to go to when I become aware that I'm defaulting to this bad behavior?
Yeah.
So if you have like a mantra, or I don't know, you dance it out, you breathe it out. We breathed right before we started this. Something that when you catch yourself, oh, I'm going there, I can immediately switch into. Because what happens is if I take away that behavior, the problem is still there. I need to solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a void now. And I'm going to keep defaulting back to that one that served me so well subconsciously if I don't have something else to fill that void. So having something else you can do quickly that's just as rewarding, just as easy, and just as obvious to do in the moment, which is hard. Mm-hmm. But it takes practice and awareness and skill. And
where do you find willpower?
Where do I find willpower? This is an interesting question to me, because when I was younger, people used to always comment like, "Erin, you have such high willpower." This is before I studied any of the behavioral science, habit science, willpower, and whatnot. And I took pride in people saying that. Mm-hmm. And I also sort of looked down on people who did not have high willpower. Like, why can't you just do the thing? Why don't you just not do that thing that's going to keep you from getting to where you want to go?
Right.
And what I didn't realize is that I was lucky in the sense that I had a strong sense of purpose. I had like my basic needs met so that I could do and achieve that which I wanted to achieve. Those things that I was like driving for and using my willpower for, I was creating environments that allowed me to without knowing it at the time. Those look different now. So now I would say like what really like gives me willpower, where do I get my willpower? It's from like having this strong sense of like identity and who do I want to be. And it's kind of like a double-edged sword, having a high level of awareness and understanding behavioral science, because I'm still a human. So I still do things that aren't in line with who I want to be and my identity and values now and then. And then having the knowledge, like in the moment that that's what I'm doing, it creates a lot of cognitive dissonance for sure. But like understanding that like, all right, I am a healthy person. I am a fit person. I am someone who values relationships. I'm someone who values the work that I do. Then I'm going to make time for those things. And then, when you start to feel off energetically, health-wise, that's, your body and your mind telling you like, hey, things aren't in line. I need to, recalibrate back into like, who do I say I am? And are my actions representative of that? So yeah.
Yeah, I do think there are so many people who are probably just like busy. Like they're working.
Busy.
Right. They're working, they're raising kids, doing whatever. Just It's like enough where they're kind of living day to day, and they never take a step back to like, okay, how can I actually set up things?
Yeah, we call this your habit self. You're kind of mindlessly just going through the motions. Mm-hmm. And I get it. Like sometimes we get into so much. I mean, I don't have kids, but that's an 18-year minimum commitment, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and I'm grateful that parents put so much effort into them, but at the end of the day, they're still human and they need to take care of themselves. And there's the old saying, you got to put your oxygen mask on first. So I would hope that they can at some point become aware that, hey, if I'm not taking care of me, I'm not probably taking care of my work well. I'm not taking care of my family well, other relationships. So yeah, busy. We all have 24 hours in a day.
Yes.
We will make time for that which we see as a priority. And then that use of our time indicates what we truly value. And if we take that step back and we do a time audit and we look at our calendars or what we did that day, and we don't think that reflects what we value, then are we really that person? It's a conversation you have to have with yourself. And does change need to be made or not?
Yeah. There is a quote from a podcast I had just heard. It was something along the lines of, you should be taking 20 minutes out of every day to prioritize. And if you don't feel like you have 20 minutes, you should take an hour.
Yeah.
It was basically along those same lines. Like everyone has the time.
Right.
You have the time. You should be prioritizing, picking what's important. And if you're too busy to do that, you probably are out of alignment.
For sure.
In some way.
There was a skill that I was first introduced to, I I want to say it was right after I finished graduate school when I was working on a specific certification. So 2014, 2015, it's called time blocking.
Mm-hmm.
Super resistant to it. Like when I was taking the certification, I actually skipped over the assignment because I was like, this is stupid. Like I've always had an entrepreneurial mindset. I work well on teams, but I don't work well when my time is micromanaged. And the thought of like time blocking and something or someone telling me what I should be doing with my time, very resistant to that. So I didn't do it. And then, years later, 2019-ish, studying, about 5 years later, I guess, really heavily studying behavioral science and habit science, and this time blocking comes back up. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Nir Eyal out of Stanford. He's a professor and author out of there. He's wrote a book called Hooked, and then most recently, I think maybe a year or two ago, he wrote a book called Indistractable. And one of the main skills that you learn in that is time blocking. And so when I had come across his books and podcasts when he had put that out again, I was like, oh, I should maybe like try this out. Like I feel like if there's resistance there's something behind that. And I'm at this point more curious, a lot more knowledge, become more aware of my own self. So I tried it out, and I'm not kidding. It's a life-changing skill. To be able to, typically I do it on Sunday evenings for my week ahead. Sometimes I'll only do it for a few days ahead, and I'll have like another midweek, maybe like Wednesday or something, and plan for the next. It just kind of depends what's going on that week, especially if there's a lot of client-facing stuff or not. But basically, you are blocking specific time in your calendar for specific tasks, meetings, to-dos, whatever it is. But you are saying at 3 p.m. on Monday, I am checking email. At 3:30 p.m., I am going to choose to go on social media. At 4 p.m., I am writing this article I need to get out. At 5 p.m., I'm closing the office doors, and I'm going to go for 2 hours and socialize with some really great friends. And I actually take it to an extreme. I think when we first had a conversation, I told you this, and I'm like, this probably sounds insanely weird. But this part is really helpful for repetitive tasks that you kind of have to do often. Maybe they're more kind of like, just the basic things that you have to get done weekly, whether it's personally or professionally. But I actually time block like 7:33 to 7:54. It sounds super weird, but what that allows me to do is to see how much exact time it takes me to do things, or I need to set aside for certain types of meetings, so that I can get better at utilizing my time for that which I value. And there's less white space. Because I want to see too, like I may schedule it like 3 to 3:30, but I really didn't start until like 3:08. And I know I like somehow wasted like 8 minutes of time. What did I do with that time? And so trying to get an idea so that like I have 24 hours a day. I'm going to prioritize 8 hours of that sleep. So I have 16. What am I going to do with that? And so it actually provides, I don't time block on the weekends. Some people do that use this strategy. I allow a little more flexibility there and escape from like work and whatnot. But on the weekdays, I do to the minute, because I'm trying to get more efficient at the things I need to do so that I have more time for the things I want to do. And yeah, I can't recommend time blocking enough to be able to actually do that which you value. And it's eye-opening too when you're like, oh, I suddenly have this like white gap. What the heck was I doing? I was probably scrolling social media or something in that time, or productively cleaning a house because there's a project I don't want to work on. And then that allows you to also get curious of like, why did I do that? Was I tired? Was I bored? Is this something that doesn't feel valuable to me but has to be done? Therefore, can I delegate it or not do it? And like, it's really eye-opening and a huge awareness building project. And then you realize that like, 16 hours, I can do that which I need and want, or I can waste it away. And you can see how you're actually doing that. The first couple times it can be a little scary.
Yeah, time blocking is something I want to come back to.
Yeah.
I was doing it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Cal Newport.
Mm-hmm.
So I was following his, I bought like the planner he created and was doing all that. Now I've definitely built up resistance around it. It was something where I stopped.
Yeah.
And then like just didn't get back into it.
Yeah. I think it provides, the way I've come to look at it is like structured flexibility. It actually allows you to fit in what you really want to do, what feels really valuable and really in line with who you are. But honestly, so that is a skill. It's also behavior. I have to like do this every Sunday. And that needs to be enjoyable and rewarding. And the most enjoyable and rewarding thing about that is, as an entrepreneur, I have 2 businesses and I have a couple other like side things that take up a lot of time as well. I would always work. I would work through the evenings and didn't have much social life for a long period of time. Thankfully, I have a very robust social life now, and it's very important to my like mental well-being to maintain that. But I also used to like often work on the weekend, sometimes all day, sometimes 3 or 4 hours a day. And now, because of the time blocking, and then like I would never feel like I had a break or rest because of that. I would take half a Saturday off, but like it never really felt like I had time to recharge and recover. So by doing the time blocking, I'm so much more efficient in my week. I don't want to say never, because there are certain times of year, sales periods and whatnot, where you have to do a little more work. But I very rarely work on the weekends now. And that's a huge reward to keep me motivated to stick to those time blocks. Yeah, I still set aside, if you want to call it work, that 30 minutes to an hour on a Sunday to look ahead at the week, what needs to go where and be done by when and whatnot. But like I get to like almost be off my computer the entire weekend, like 5 p.m. Friday till, probably 5, 6, 7 p.m. on Sunday, depending on what's going on that day of when I decide to time block for the upcoming week. So that's really rewarding to be able to know that can happen, rather than things kind of just slide and move wherever, and never really feeling rested and regenerated.
Yes. Okay. What role does health and fitness play in your life?
Yeah. So you want to go all the way back or?
All the way.
Okay.
Full story.
So I started playing basketball when I was 5 in my backyard, technically my grandparents' backyard. They lived right behind us. With my cousins, we'd go play after school. Was obsessed with the sport, loved it. Like, talk about intrinsic motivation, like absolutely love that sport. Didn't even need to like win or anything, like just loved going out there and putting the ball in the hoop and figuring out new cool dribbling drills and getting a steal from someone as you guard them. So that's kind of where health and fitness started for me, was just playing basketball. Fortunately, you hit the awkward middle school years, and as my dad likes to say, I was thick then. I used to say I was a fat kid, but he's like, "You were thick," and I'm like, "I'm not sure that's much better, but okay." So awkward middle school years wasn't really what I would consider health or fitness. I mean, I was basically the same height than I am now. Fortunately or unfortunately, I have not grown since 7th grade. So I was really tall for a middle school kid, but then I was also like overweight. So same height, but weighed like 30 more pounds than I do currently. So by the time 7th grade came around and start of 8th grade, I was like, oh, I really want to make the high school team. And so this is also the time, I'm going to date myself here, that like the internet just came out basically and accessible by like humans in your house. Of course, I don't know. I can't tell how old you are. You might be a little younger, but there was dial-up days. I don't know if you're familiar with that. And you're like, no one could get on the phone. And anyways, go on the internet and I just start like Googling. I was probably like Yahooing at the time. Like, how do you eat healthy? How do you get in shape? How do you jump higher? And so from like 7th, 8th grade, I started basically writing my own nutrition and workout plans. We luckily had a garage gym because I wanted to get in shape. I was also getting injured a lot, I think, because I was out of shape while I played sports. So I would often like roll my ankles or, pull a muscle or something. So I was just trying to like figure out, how do I get better shape so I can be better at basketball and make the basketball team. That was kind of where it started. And then from 7th grade through the end of my freshman year of high school, so about a 2-year period, I was able to lose like 35 pounds on my own, basically just writing my own workout and nutrition plans. It was so simple back then. I don't know why it's gotten so complicated. But it was also simple because, you went from eating like 3 bowls of cereal with 4 tablespoons of sugar on each for breakfast to like, I don't know, like 1 bowl of cereal with no sugar on it. So it wasn't like it was insanely super healthy. It just went from insanely not healthy to maybe sort of healthy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where like health and fitness started for me. Played basketball all through high school, started almost all my games. I cut out a brief period of an uncomfortable time, but I ended up, after my senior year of high school, deciding that I didn't love the game anymore, and I gave up 12 Division II and III offers to just go to school for academics instead of basketball. I got accepted to UC Davis, and you can major in exercise biology, which I was like, I love sports and I'm really good at science. This sounds amazing. So went there. In some of my classes, we had a class, I think it was my junior year, called what was it called? Like physiology of disease or something. And like how exercise played a role in both disease physiology and getting you out of a disease state. And honestly, it was like tear jerking, knowing that there were lots of people in my immediate and extended family that had a lot of the common diseases of today. And then, diabetes, obesity, heart disease, and that exercise and fitness, that's where I mostly was before I got into nutrition, could play such a role in changing that. But it's a hard behavior to do. So ended up becoming a personal trainer in college. That was one of my jobs. Finished college, took a gap year, and then ended up in grad school at UT. That's what brought me to Austin here. Again, exercise physiology, master's degree there. When I got out of it, though, I knew all the stuff about exercise and fitness and human physiology in the body. And that was great, and I was still personal training and teaching fitness classes. But I kind of felt the state of cognitive dissonance in that I felt like I wasn't really getting to clients to where they wanted to be health-wise. And that's when I realized, exercise isn't, you can't just exercise your way to better health. It will help in many extent, mentally and physically. But if you're still eating crappy, if you're still sleeping crappy, if you still have a crappy mindset, it's minimally helping at best. So then I started studying nutrition, sleeping recovery, motivation and mindset. And, had a few jobs out of grad school. I ran UT's personal training program for a bit. I ran corporate fitness for a company in the Bay Area for a bit. Ended up coming back here because I loved and missed Austin so much, and it was way more affordable than California living. And had no interest in starting my own business. I came back and had taken some clients that I had while I was in grad school and had worked for the lab, started working again for the lab because I was trying to figure out what to do after I didn't really fit into the corporate space. Personally, it wasn't a good fit for me. And then that's when I started my first business, nutrition, online and on-site nutrition, health and fitness coaching. And at that point in time, that was my entire life. I mean, working out and playing sports is what I did for fun. And if I wasn't working out or playing sports, I was probably working someone out. And at the time, I was relatively just out of grad school, a little over a year out, year and a half maybe. I didn't have a lot of money. And so I worked a lot and my butt off to a point where my goal was eventually to be able to buy a house in Austin, and I achieved that. But my entire identity, my entire life was wrapped up in health and fitness. And, I don't think at the time I realized that I probably wasn't that happy, but I was also in kind of like a survival mode. I didn't have a lot of money. I was out here alone in Austin with no family. And to be honest, not really any friends because I was working so much and because I'd moved back and all my grad school friends had moved away. And so looking back, compared to what I feel now, it wasn't great having health and fitness as my entire identity and all I really did. And, fast forward a little bit, I ended up buying that house. I ended up starting another business now where we coach coaches in behavioral science with a partner, which I was grateful to have someone else to collaborate with and to do the things that I'm not good at and whatnot, and to create something bigger than I could create by myself with expertise that's different from mine. But in doing that, I think I swung the other way because I had realized all of my life and identity is wrapped up in my work, wrapped up in health and fitness. That's not good. You can't have all your eggs in one basket. It's not going to sustain you. And so I went the other way. And not that I gave up health and fitness, that was still really important to me, living healthy, seeing everything that I'd seen by helping clients and just family members who lived unhealthy lifestyles and whatnot. But I didn't want my identity in everything to be tied up in that, because if that failed, I failed. I can't exist. That is who I am. And just kind of came to that realization. But then I kind of swung all the way to the other side of the spectrum to where I would go to events where it would be important for people to know I was involved in health and fitness or coaching. And they actually wouldn't know what I did. And I actually ended up taking pride in that, being I've succeeded. My whole identity is wrapped over here, until actually fairly recently, probably 2 or 3 months ago, I was in like a curated small networking situation, 10 people, where it was very important for them to know what I do. And they didn't know what I did. And I was like, oh, this probably is not good. I need to swing back and find some balance into that. So health and fitness, personally, other than just my identity, used to look like 4 to 6 workouts a week, meal prepping to the point where I counted every calorie to like the 10th of a gram. And it was very like restrictive. And I think a lot of that, again, was wrapped up in that identity. People always saw me as the health and fitness person, always saw me as a trainer, always saw me as the worker-outer. Now for me, it's like, okay, what do I need to do the things I love and to feel good doing them? And so now it's like, okay, I try to prioritize 2 or 3 strength training sessions a week. And then most of my hobbies, thankfully, are active. So I don't prioritize cardio as much anymore. I like to bike. I like to do Krav Maga. I like to play basketball, pickleball, go hiking. So it's like, okay, like if I can be active enough, maintain the physicality that makes me feel good, then what's the minimum I can do for that is kind of what health and fitness looks like for me today.
Gotcha. What, for nutrition and / diet, what would be like your tips for the layperson, someone who doesn't want to like track every calorie, all of that, and let's say they're eating like the standard American diet? What would be your advice to someone like that?
Oh, that's a really good question. I would say I'm like, generally speaking, like diet agnostic. I don't subscribe to anything. I don't fully cut anything out of my life. I like generally don't eat fast food. But we've known what we need to do from the start of millennia. And like, if you're feeling like you have too much body weight on you, then you probably need to eat a little less of what. It honestly really doesn't matter if you're just cutting calories down a little bit. But in general, like for most people, like mostly produce, some lean protein, make sure you're drinking a lot of water, you're getting enough fiber. It's going to go a long way if you're eating the standard American diet. The other big thing that I think people don't think about, and I just had one of my signature events a couple days ago, and we actually kind of discussed this a little bit, is that we often look to food as just like a means to an end. I'm hungry and I need to get back to doing what I'm doing. What can I stuff in my mouth fast enough and then get back to what I'm doing? Or stuff it in my mouth fast enough while I'm still doing the thing I need to be doing. And in that, like, it's really easy to consume a ton of calories and maybe take you to a health place you don't want to be because you're doing it mindlessly and you're doing it fast. And so it's really easy to consume thousands of calories in 2, 3, 4. You'd be amazed at how long it takes most people to eat like lunch. If you just sit down to eat lunch by yourself, it's probably like 3 to 5 minutes. But your hunger and satiety signals don't actually kick in until about 20 minutes after. So you could have overeaten in 3 to 5 minutes and not even know it because you haven't given your body enough time to get there. So like more so than like what you're eating, because that's going to be a little bit different for everybody. Depending on where you live, what's available, what health issues you may or may not have, what your preferences are, is like how you're eating. The number one thing I would say is like sit down, put your phone away, quiet environment, maybe some fresh air, and like actually like think about each bite. Now you may not be able to do this all the time, but if you can even just do this one meal a day, it might make a huge difference to realize like if I actually eat those Pringles slowly, they're really not that good. They kind of are gross, but usually we're like stuffing them down so fast that you just get that initial like whatever their flavor is, and you think you like the crisp that they have, but you don't actually know that, Or like if I do sit down, like oh my god, last week I had a peach that I bought at the grocery store, and like most of them are pretty good, but I had this one that was just like absolutely perfectly ripe, like bright yellow, perfect texture, amazing flavor, and I bit into it and I was like, oh my god, this is like pure bliss. And it's like, so good for me. It's got lots of vitamins and minerals and fibers, and just like instead of just like mindlessly going through it and being like, was that peach good? I think it was good. But just like savoring and enjoying that, and realizing that like, wow, this is really amazing. And I'm thankful that I have the money, to afford fresh fruit, and that fresh fruit is available in this part of the world to me and whatnot. If you can just like slow down with your meals and actually become aware of eating, I think that's could play an even bigger role than what.
Yeah. So you think that going through that process would almost lead you to better foods?
Yeah, because you're going to, one, realize that, oh, this really isn't that good, and this maybe better for me thing actually is pretty darn good. But two, if you slow down, you actually give your body, your physiology, time to catch up and register that, yeah, I've actually had plenty of food. I don't need more. Mm-hmm. So it's going to like make you aware that like maybe you don't want to be actually eating these not so good foods, and you're going to be eating just less overall because your hunger and satiety signals have a chance to actually kick in before you're done.
When have you failed in the past? Mm-hmm. And how, if at all, did you learn from it? This is
the one question on the list you gave me ahead of time. I was like, I hate this question. I'm sure by others' standards, I have failed in my life. You know, I can think about certain scenarios that I wish maybe went differently. But for me, I don't think there's failure. Like, sure, I didn't win games. Sure, relationships didn't go away as I wanted them to. But, like, I wouldn't be who I am today if that didn't happen. I didn't go through those things. I didn't fail by society or some other person's standards. So for me, they're just, like, learning opportunities. And don't get me wrong, they can be very painful mm-hmm. in the moment. You know, and it takes time to process and get through them and figure out what that actual learning opportunity is. But if I'm honest, I don't think I failed. Life's a roller coaster. I'm just trying to learn as we go.
Yeah. What has been a big learning experience for you?
Oh, man, entrepreneurship is a giant learning experience. Yeah, I've got like this second business with a partner. And one of the biggest things is like for my first business, which I still have, it's just much smaller scale than what I once grew it to be. Like going at it alone sucks. And that's what my first business was. Solopreneur, never had intentions of growing, scaling. I was good at what I did, and it was a way for me to make money doing that in the context that I want to do it without someone telling me I had to do it this way or be here at this time. But it sucked alone. Hated it. So that was a huge learning thing. And then, you know, I got a partner for the second business. Super grateful for him. Love collaborating. Love that he's good at things I suck at. But in other ways, it's a struggle as well. Like we're culturally different. He's Swedish. I'm American. And that brings up some challenges sometimes. And then I would say like the biggest learning experience that we're going through right now is like both with my first business and luckily with the second business, the first 4 years of the second business, we were pretty much able to go completely by leveraging our networks and off of referrals from those we served by doing a really good job with who we brought in. So now we're kind of going through a learning experiences like referrals aren't enough for us to make the business sustainable long term, especially with building a team, having multiple people on that, you know, need to be paid and need their well-being satisfied by doing work for us. And so we're trying to figure out the marketing thing beyond just like referral, relationship, word of mouth, leveraging our network space. And I don't know that I have the answers to that, but I am learning a lot, and it is quite painful mm-hmm. experience to go through. It's skill set I'm not good at. I'm not sure I was meant to do it, but, you know, as an entrepreneur, you have to do everything first yourself, especially when you're on a low budget before you can kind of hand it off. And so probably by most standards, including some of my own, we're probably failing at that right now, if we're completely honest. We're not meeting the numbers we thought we were going to meet. We haven't figured out the skill sets we need to do that or the right people at the right place to do it for. And so it's definitely a roller coaster, and we're in a low, and it's challenging. But we're for sure learning. And I've learned, like, one thing we did hire a marketing person, and she was great for 5 months, and we shelled thousands of dollars out to her. Probably still a good deal relative to maybe what she would have charged with people with a bigger budget. She did phenomenal work, like beautiful copywriting, beautiful graphics, did what we asked, but it didn't yield what we thought. And what I learned is that I guess I kind of already knew this, but you don't know what you don't know until you know what you didn't know. Mm-hmm. So like in my mind, you know, in hiring this marketing person, marketing would turn into sales. we would make more money by putting money into marketing. I don't have a marketing background. I have a sales background. I'm really good at building relationships with people, and that's how I built my first business. But we didn't have like our branding is still that which what we initially created with the business, which has served us well, but we probably need to upgrade that. And then we don't have a sales process because we've never needed it. We get referrals. They hear about us. They hear about the great experience from their friend or their colleague, and they sign up. There's nothing we've had to do. So then when we start marketing and we start getting new people connecting with us and we don't have a sales process, well, then they just fall through the cracks. So learning that, and I'm like, well, crap, now I feel really stupid, but I didn't know what I didn't know back then. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I would say right now we're probably in a period that probably looks like failure, but it's a really challenging learning experience. And I guess at the end of it, I'm grateful because I'll figure something out. I'm not gonna fail. When my back's against the wall, I'll find a way to perform. It may look a little different than I thought.
How do you maintain that frame of like, this is not a failure, this is learning?
You know, that might be a part of like, I feel like the growth mindset that I've been like sort of, I don't know if gifted with is the right term, but I think some people have certain kind of like genetically higher levels of like potential like resilience, growth mindset. Like I do think it can be shifted with the right like coaching and support. But honestly, it just feels like who I am. I've been that way for so long. I can't think of not being that way. Like I am not going to fail. And if you tell me I'm going to fail, I'm definitely not going to fail. A little bit of that reactance in me, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Like, don't tell me I'm not going to fail. How do you balance extrinsic and intrinsic motivation?
I think that's by like having this kind of like devout sense that like I've got one life to live and I don't want to waste it. Like I really value my sleep, but I really wish I didn't have to sleep 8 hours a day, but I couldn't live fully if I didn't sleep 8 hours a day. And so where I'm going with that is that because I'm hoping for 100 quality years. I tried to minimize doing things that I don't enjoy doing and I'm not good at. Now, I'm an entrepreneur. I have to do a lot of that, but I try to minimize it and or create ways that I still do a lot of what I like so that it's sort of a reward for doing what I kind of have to do and may not like. That being said, coming back to your exact question, I'm often intrinsically motivated to do a lot of what I do because I enjoy doing what I do. So I don't have to like force myself to do it. Now, for those things that I do have to do, mostly like the business things, admin and whatnot, and marketing and sales. Yeah, I've got to figure out ways to extrinsically motivate myself. And so lately, what that's mostly looking like is making sure I have things time blocked at the end of my day, on my weekend, throughout my day. I take 3 walks a day. Those are very enjoyable and rewarding for me just to peacefully. I don't listen to anything. I go on 3 like minimum 1 mile walks around my neighborhood in the sunshine if I'm working from home, which is most days. And kind of create those rewarding, enjoyable breaks, whether it's 20-minute ones within the day, like with those walks or with a workout, or something fun at the end of the day. That is intrinsically enjoyable itself so that I can strive. I can use that as extrinsic motivation for the thing that I don't enjoy doing. But then there are also strategies, like some things you got to fight with yourself. You really don't want to do this in the moment, but it has to get done. And so perhaps I'm going to do something like temptation bundling where I'm listening to my favorite song or podcast while doing it to just like get the behavior done, get the rep in, do the motion that I have to do. But I would say overall, like I'm probably way more intrinsically motivated for most things just because I set my life up such that like I've only got so many years and I want to try to live it the best I can and do things that I enjoy while doing it. Mm-hmm. So it most of the time does not feel like I have to tap into extrinsic motivators.
Yeah. And I mean, all those things are like the making the behaviors you don't want to do more difficult, less accessible, making the easy ones more, or the ones you do want easier, more accessible.
Right.
It's almost like you're setting up the extrinsic motivation to the point where you build up the internal. What day-to-day habits have you found to most increase your quality of life?
I have a stretch routine in the morning. I
Okay.
guess I'm sort of getting old because my back and legs don't feel right if I don't do it. Doesn't take much time, 5 minutes. And I actually fought that a lot initially because as soon as I wake up, like my mind's going and I've got things I need and want to do. So I had to use some of the stuff that, we teach our clients to get myself to figure out how do I consistently do at least the minimum that's necessary to physically feel where I want to feel. So that morning stretch routine is paramount. Like on days, if I travel, sometimes I'm out of context and then I end up not doing it. And then even just some days, like, you wake up and you're just like already like stressed or thinking about something you have to do, and I'll feel rushed, or maybe I'll decide to sleep just a little later than I want. And, I won't get to do the stretch routine. And so it's almost like the negative feeling now that I get from not doing it reinforces the fact that I do it. So my morning stretch routine, like I said, another thing along that line is I do 3 walks a day. If it's raining, sometimes it'll be less. If it's ungodly hot, sometimes I'll skip my middle of the day. This is getting to about the time of the year where I question the 1:30 p.m. walk. Sometimes it's just to the mailbox and it's 8 minutes and that's it. But like walks, on these walks years ago, I don't think I've done it since I've moved to my house, which was about 4 years ago, coming up on 4 years. I used to like listen to podcasts and always feel like, oh, I'm FOMO, like I'm missing out on what I need to learn. Most of my podcasts were more for learning than entertainment. And now I don't take anything. And I can't tell you like how many good ideas I've come up with on those. Like, and it's so refreshing just to be out in the air with the sunshine on you, breathing and thinking. My morning walk is the most important one for sure. And like, sometimes I am running a little bit later, but I will get like this morning, I usually do this 1 mile loop and I had to cut it short by like 0.8 of a mile, a half a block, because I don't remember why I was a little off this morning, but whatever reason. Oh, I have my guest in town, so I was chit-chatting with her a little bit. But I was just a little short before my first call, and I was like, I could have thought, I had 17 minutes before the first call. The walk typically takes 18 to 20. And I was like, I could just skip it and, start working. But I know that, like, literally the rest of my day is not going to go as well. So I got in a 15-minute walk instead. Yeah. So stretch routine, walks. I wouldn't say that this is necessarily a habit, but it's a priority that I make. Sleep. I just cannot function without an adequate amount. Ideally, 8 to 8.5 hours. Almost always I prioritize 8. Every once in a while, last night had a bunch of guests over. It was 7 hours and 15 minutes. But being in bed for 7 to 8 hours, like literally if I go below 7, my next day is miserable. So 7 to 8 hours of sleep, prioritizing that is huge. And then I really enjoy cooking. Again, I don't consider that a habit, but trying to meal prep once or twice a week. I think cooking is one of the biggest differences you can make in your life health-wise if you learn how to cook just a few staple meals. It's going to make a difference like physically because you're likely going to eat, even if you cook the same things that you would eat out, there's going to be less calories probably. Most of the time it's probably going to be higher quality food. You're going to like probably savor it a little bit more because you put a little work into it. And then obviously your pocketbook's going to appreciate it a little bit more. It's much cheaper to cook that thing for yourself. And for me, cooking is almost like, I don't do it every day, which is why I say it's not a habit. I do it once or twice a week and prep multiple meals usually. But it's like a very like calming and meditative experience for me. Sometimes I do it in silence and think alone. Sometimes I put like my favorite music on and like get like a nice little energy burst dance break in between, and that's uplifting. And sometimes I do put a podcast on and learn something while doing it. But I think cooking is another priority behavior that I repeat often that makes the biggest impact on my life. And then, yeah, living an active lifestyle, prioritizing movement in some way. Mm-hmm. So I don't necessarily have to do a workout each day, but I try to prioritize 30 to 60 minutes of something active, whether that's a long walk with a friend, and this is outside of like the regular solo walks I take by myself, or going to a Krav Maga class, or playing some basketball or pickleball or whatever it might be. Movement every day.
Yeah, I definitely believe in getting as much movement as possible. That's something I've been doing more, is like taking what I can get. Not even for like the health benefits, but because I know that the more I move, the better I feel and the more energy I have. So I'll like park farther away from the grocery store, or whatever it is. Or I got a standing desk. That's another thing. And I also wanted to say, I wholeheartedly believe in that, like having time without stimulation. It's like your walks or cooking without anything going on. Because that's, like you were saying, that's when the good ideas come.
Yeah.
And if you're not ready for it, if you're blocking it out with music or a podcast or watching TV, you might miss it.
Right. And I think I originally first started taking them just because I like just needed like the breath, like the, just like, you know, I have so many things going on and I'm always on that I just needed to like turn off for a second. And then I would notice that I would start thinking, but like things I thinking about were like things I couldn't think about when you've got so many things coming at you. Thoughts would just pop in and good ideas and things for collaborations or whatnot. But I'm sure you maybe read this book or at least heard of it, but the book Think and Grow Rich.
Yes.
So once I read that, which really wasn't that long ago, it was maybe 2 years ago that I finally read it. Yeah, it's just amazing. Your thoughts are money, potentially. And so if you don't provide the space for them to occur, you might be holding yourself back.
Have you read The War of Art?
I have not.
Okay. It's a good one.
Enlighten me a little bit. What's the premise?
The premise is there is this thing called resistance. And resistance is the enemy.
Okay.
And basically trying to create art or create anything is a battle of you against getting through resistance. This book gets very esoteric, and it gets to like talking about a muse, and there's a muse and it's trying to talk to you, and if you're not available to it, you're going to miss it. I don't believe in the muse in the literal sense, but I do believe that your brain is going to send you things, and it is up to you to be ready and be in a space of accepting and receiving. So this book just talks about that.
That's kind of reminding me. I'm definitely gonna have to add that to my Goodreads list. But of some conversations I've been having with friends about, like lately, because business stuff has been so much, and I'm having to run the business more so right now than I would prefer. Than do things I'm good at and like to create. It's been hard. It's hard for me to create and get into flow when there are things calling my name that need to be done, have to be done, should be done. And so that's reminding me that like if I have space, and this is something that I've talked more about and realizing that I need to do, is I need to create the space to where it's unimpeded. Then I can really create. Then I can really flow. But if I don't have that unimpeded space, uninterrupted, nothing calling my name for a handful of hours is what I really need to just get going. And I can go for like 3 hours once I'm in flow, 3-4 hours. But if I have things calling my name that are going to interrupt that, then it's really hard for me to get creative and flow. So what you just described kind of really resonated with me, and I'm definitely going to have to take a look at that.
Yeah. For me, it's always the biggest resistance is that there is something else I need to be doing. That feeling.
Yeah.
And having that time to myself, time with nothing else going on, let myself think whatever I need to think, get them out. That seems to help me a lot. And then also writing down everything I need to do. It like gives my brain a break, and it's like, okay, it's just down on paper. I don't need to worry about this. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Rick.
What does your dream life look like? And what, if anything, is missing today?
This is like the what do you want to do in 5 years question that I don't like. Honestly, my life is pretty freaking good right now. I'm not gonna lie. Dream life would be honestly that I don't have to worry about money and that I don't have to trade my time for money. That I can work on highly valuable things only and then spend my time in like the work sense and then spend my time doing that which I love with who I love. So this is why I also hate like the 5-year question. I don't have a hard picture. Like I can't say like this size house, a family, this body, but like I have a general like feeling, and it's like that feeling to where like you don't have to worry about your like basic needs and your finances basically, and that you have a robust social support system too, that if I had something go on at 2 a.m., I feel like I can call 3 people and they would come help. So what's missing, and this is something that I've been like intentionally and actively working on, is being that like I don't have family here. And I, wasn't born and raised here. So is building a very robust, deep friend group and professional network so that not only can I like support others, but like when the time comes, you have reciprocal relationships and you can support each other. And I wouldn't say that that's like missing fully at this point in time. I've been actively trying to build it for a year plus, 2 years maybe, coming out of the pandemic, having basically worked from home, started a new business, working in my house all by myself for like a year and a half, basically only on that from like 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. really burns you out, and then realizes like, one, what's the point of this if you have nobody? And 2, like not having anybody is not very fun. So I'm definitely in a much better place, and that literally within the last couple of months, just like realizing like, you attended an event I hosted last night. It's kind of my signature event that I've hosted every month for 14 months. Like the satisfaction that comes from people saying like how much they enjoyed it, and that they tell other people about it, and then they then come back and then they attend and participate in other things in my life with it. Like that's huge for me, because in like, for example, this last April, I took my 35th birthday trip to Santa Fe, and I invited 7 friends from Austin. And literally, if I had tried to do that on the birthday before, having 7 people, not that we're just like activity partners and like surface level friends, but like people that I feel like I've really built something on a little bit deeper level with. Obviously true depth takes some time, or something traumatic. Hopefully nothing traumatic happens. But like I've put in the effort and the consistency to create deeper friendships, that then I was able to get 7 people from Austin to travel with me to Santa Fe to celebrate a big birthday. Like that was super gratifying, knowing that like your work is paying off. So to be honest, it's not that it's fully missing, but maybe I'm building towards just having a more robust community and relationships. But honestly, other than that, I really can't complain about life. Everybody always wants a little more money. You can do a little bit more fun things with that. But man, I own a home in Austin with a roof over, it's a roof over my head. I eat pretty well, so I can't complain.
Yeah, it's like you were saying earlier, like as much as we would love to be willpower machines, like we are humans.
Yep.
And a big part of being a human is social connection is important.
For sure. And actually that's the thing that I've, my journey in health and fitness and as a coach, it's always started out about how do I help people live healthier, happier, more productive lives. That started out solely with personal training. It weaved into nutrition, mindset, sleep and recovery coaching. It then turned into like, habits and our behaviors play a big role. And not only am I helping others and myself one-on-one, but now I'm helping coaches so that they can then go help 20 or 30 people. But what I think I've realized at the end of the day, that if our social structures, family, friends, workplaces, aren't aligned to support us properly, everything else falls through the cracks. Like work's not going to be good. Your physical health's not going to be good. Your mental health's not going to be good. Your relationships aren't going to be good if you don't feel supported. we are social beings at our core.
Erin Laverone, everybody. Erin, where can people find out more about you?
I'm probably, as far as like any social media, is most active online on LinkedIn. You can just search Erin Laverone on there. I think that's my favorite social network of choice, just because maybe it's my own filter bubble, but people seem so willing to like help in that space, as opposed to, I think, some other social medias you can end up in kind of negative spirals. But I feel like it's rare, again, at least in my bubble that I'm in on LinkedIn, that you see people like commenting negative things just for the hell of it, or people are wanting to collaborate and help out. I mean, I met my business partner on LinkedIn. He's in Sweden. That would have never happened otherwise. So LinkedIn's probably the best place to find me, to connect, and then from there, hopefully we can actually personally connect over a Zoom call or grab coffee.
Great. I've taken a lot from this. I think a lot of people will. So Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for your time.
Yes. Bye, everybody.